You're watching Force 13's live streaming service.
Now looking at a 12-hour satellite loop of Cyclone Batsirai, which has exploded in its intensity over the past 12 to 24 hours. It is now a Category 4 cyclone on the Saffir-Simpson scale with winds of 140 miles per hour, as per the latest Météo France bulletin. Right now, several warnings are in effect for the islands of Mauritius, Reunion, and the biggest island of all, Madagascar. Class 4 warnings, the highest tier on Mauritius, is now in effect, and the red cyclonic alert is in effect for Reunion as well. The green cyclonic watch is also in effect for the entire eastern seaboard of Madagascar and also the central parts of Madagascar. My name is Walter Yun, and Nathan's on vacation if you don't know yet, and Xavier's at school, so I'm filling in. Right now, let me just introduce my team, consisting of, in this hour, Isaac, Thomas, Tim, and Xiao Chen. Good morning or evening to you.
Hi, how's it going? I feel like as we head into the stream today, we have a lot to talk about as Cyclone Batsirai is absolutely hammering Mauritius and La Reunion with those tropical storm force winds and rain right now before it does begin to head towards Madagascar.
Thomas, what do you think about this storm? You know, it exploded in intensity like in the past 12 hours.
Yeah, the storm has gotten very strong. It's a Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale right now. Again, those winds at 140 miles per hour, pressure of 935 millibars, according to Météo France at this time. And it's expected to be moving towards Madagascar here, where green cyclone alerts are already in place. So it's a serious situation to say the least. We have it at a stage 7 on our cyclone destruction potential scale, meaning that catastrophic damage is possible wherever that landfall does end up happening. So this is a very serious situation. This is the kind of cyclone that you hate to see, especially in the Southwest Indian Ocean. We don't like seeing these storms moving towards land areas like Madagascar, Mauritius, La Reunion, and looks like ultimately it could be striking Mozambique long range as well.
A storm that will probably be tracking for the entire week now, actually. Tim, what do you think about this storm as well?
Honestly, Walter, this is a very beautiful but dangerous storm that we're seeing in the Southwest Indian Ocean. The last time I think this area of the world dealt with a storm of this intensity would have been, I believe, Galena a couple years ago. So this area, while it's a small patch of real estate in the Southwest Indian Ocean, this area does see its fair share of tropical cyclones, especially intense ones like we're seeing with Batsirai this morning.
Yeah, so a storm that is pretty strong in this territory and is actually affecting the islands right now. In the latest bulletin of the Mauritius Meteorological Service, they have said that cyclonic warning class 4 is in force in Mauritius. Some of the highest gusts recorded are as follows. Those locations are in the island of Mauritius. Champ de Mars 151 kilometers per hour. Domaine des Palais 119 kilometers per hour. River Nore 108 kilometers per hour. Grand Bassin 108 kilometers per hour. Le Morne 115 kilometers per hour. Facoas 109 kilometers per hour. Richter 100 kilometers per hour. Belle Village 100 kilometers per hour, and Nouvelle Découverte 108 kilometers per hour. And rainfall totals are already above 100 millimeters over the last 12 hours already. So this is a storm that is actually affecting Mauritius right now and may pose a very serious threat towards the residents there. Thomas, you're showing us a cone. Do you want to explain it further?
Absolutely. So this is the cone of uncertainty. According to Matteo France, you can see rather clearly the first thing I want to go over is the track. So within this yellow-greenish area here, I'm highlighting it right now in my pen. You can see not an exact representation, but you can see they're relatively close to what they have. But anywhere within this yellow-greenish area, that's where the storm could track directly. This is where a direct landfall or the center of the storm could go directly over. So basically what this means is that impacts can happen well outside the cone. So the actual area of potential impacts is about yay big. It's pretty large here. So anywhere really along the eastern coast of Madagascar here could be receiving tropical storm force winds, certainly some significant rainfall as well. Most of Madagascar here, basically the southern 2/3 of the country could get tropical storm force winds before this does head towards Mozambique. Breaking things down a little bit, this storm is going to be very strong as it does move towards Madagascar here. The storm currently with winds of 140 miles per hour, and in about 12 hours time, so it's going to be right about here, the expectation is that the storm is going to have winds 1 minute at about 125 miles per hour. So a bit of weakening as expected, down to a category 3, but still 125 miles per hour. That's a 5 mile an hour difference from where we are right now. It's still going to pack a punch. In about a day from now, and the storm's right about here, the current expectation is that this storm is going to be at, it would appear 115 miles per hour, 1 minute sustained. So storm is again going to weaken some more as it does move towards Madagascar generally. And then as we do head towards, we hold the line there 36 hours out, about a day and a half out. We're still at about 115 miles per hour before we shoot back up to 125 and then 130 miles per hour right before landfall in Madagascar. So the expectation is that this will return to category 4 intensity by the time it does get there, before it does make a very strong and catastrophic landfall in Madagascar, weakening all the way down to about 50 miles per hour and tracking through Madagascar with those winds at about 50 miles per hour before moving back out overseas and re-strengthening all the way back up to about 65 miles per hour. So storm is going to be very strong. Category 4 hit is expected for Madagascar before the storm does move through and re-strengthens into a potent tropical storm in the Mozambique Channel before heading into the southern side of Mozambique. Should also be noted with the wind fields that Mauritius is currently within tropical storm force winds, and La Reunion is bound to be getting some of those tropical storm force winds as well. Neither of these islands are within the cone, though, so odds are that a landfall will not be occurring there. You're not going to have to deal with the very maximum winds. But tropical storm force winds and maybe even minimal hurricane/cyclone force winds are possible. That's winds above 75 miles per hour before the storm does move towards Madagascar, where somewhere along the coast, unfortunately, we're pretty sure is going to be getting a major cyclone with catastrophic impacts. Again, stage 7 on the cyclone destruction potential scale at this time.
Now, stage 7 means that catastrophic damage is possible in the landfall area, which is now forecasted for central Madagascar. So, stage 7 is a very serious storm, and it should not be taken lightly.
That's absolutely the case. This storm, it's actually going to be, if we get into particulars here, the main area that it looks like this is going to be getting near to is places like, and I apologize if I butcher this, But Embala, so that's near the coast there of Madagascar. That looks to be the main place where the landfall is expected. But places like Antananarivo, which is the capital of Madagascar, you're probably going to get direct impacts from this, and many other areas. If you're in central or southern Madagascar, this storm is probably going to impact you directly in some way, whether it be through rainfall, significant winds, or things of that nature. I mean, we're expecting here areas that are going to get well over 800 millimeters of rain. Basically, the way that you can look at this is this is 100 millimeters, 200 millimeters, 400 millimeters, 600 millimeters, 800 millimeters of rain. Those are the approximate conversions. So you can see here rather clearly there's 50, 25 millimeters, which is 1-2 inches or so. So definitely significant rainfall, very dangerous, coupled with those strong winds. And again, the H-Wharf wind swath here showing very clearly Category 3 or 4 hit directly along the coast. I mean, it's no joke, and that stage 7, I think, is warranted, which again means catastrophic impacts are possible, if not likely, for Madagascar.
Yes, indeed. Tim, I think you're streaming the bulletin for of Mateo France, is it? Correct
Actually,
me if I'm
Walter, what we have is this is an experimental product from Mateo France. This includes their intensity forecast and their probabilities of tropical storm, and in this case, cyclone intense winds. This is actually something that they just rolled out this year. I was not able to translate this because this is in PDF format and is in French. But basically, what Mateo France has done as an experimental product is they have about 45 ensembles that they have ran through to put this entire forecast together. So just going down through, obviously this is the 12Z run of their ensembles on Batsirai, and most of them are in pretty agreement that this is going to stay as an intense tropical cyclone on the Mateo France scale, may weaken over the next maybe day or two, but obviously some strengthening is still forecasted before it does get to Madagascar. No real consensus. There is a couple outliers that might take this up to the VITC intensity, which is basically the Category 5 equivalent on Mateo France's cyclone. There's maybe 8 members that do take it above that. A few of them obviously going on the chart, so I wouldn't put much faith and stock into a couple of those ensembles.
Wait, so
But the
they're-
general
so the
consensus-
ensembles are internal, right? It's their own ensembles, right?
Yes, it is. This, like I said, this is in French, but yeah, they have 45 ensembles that they've ran with through CMRS. So it looks like that is their own model guidance that they've used
Yes, it is.
for this. But yeah, the forecast does take it towards obviously the intensity. If we keep it on Madagascar, obviously you're going to see a steep drop going from intense tropical cyclone down to a moderate tropical storm equivalent, right around 45, 50 knots. And as you guys have been alluding to, once it does get back into Mozambique Channel, Mateo France does bring this back up to an intense, more of an intense tropical storm, right about 50, maybe 55 knots. So it's looking like Mateo France is right on board with what we've been seeing from the JTWC, which does have that same similar trend to it. Of course, a couple of these ensembles do have Batsirai just completely collapsing over Madagascar. So really going to be interesting to see what the Madagascar terrain does to this storm once it does make a potential landfall there. But the interesting aspect is that they now also have direct impact. So this is basically their cone of uncertainty compiled with what their official forecast is. So right now it's about a 50-50 shot, according to this cone, that we're going to see a landfall in central Madagascar. I don't see this making an abrupt turn to the north or the south. So central Madagascar pretty much right at ground zero from where we could be seeing a direct landfall. And then obviously getting out past 5 days, they do have this forecast to go into the Mozambique Channel. Now getting into the wind probabilities, as you alluded to, Thomas, that Mauritius and La Reunion currently experiencing tropical storm force winds This is supported by this experimental product. You can see those deeper reds as to where those tropical storm force winds are currently at and forecasted to go to in the next 3 days on the left panel here, and then the same at 5 days. So right now, it's looking Madagascar will get the worst of this. Possibly Mozambique maybe becoming more of a threat in the 5-day forecast, at least on tropical storm force conditions. And then 50 knot winds, pretty much the same. And what is interesting is right now, there are no, what we would consider hurricane force winds being forecasted at the 5-day mark on the Mozambique channel. So still a lot of uncertainty what Batsirai is going to do once it does get through Madagascar and back into the Mozambique channel. But rest assured, I would still be keeping an eye on this in Mozambique just in case this decides to pull an occasional trick or two out of its sleeve. We've already seen that with Batsirai already, where it was the Category 3 equivalent storm just north of Rodrigues and weakened and has really intensified over the last couple of days as it has come very close to Mauritius and Reunion.
All right. So a storm that is very life-threatening and a very serious threat towards the islands and then Madagascar in particular. And of course, we're here to answer your questions. If you have one for us, send your message or your questions with Force 13 or in text. It will light up for us, and we will probably, if we can, we will answer your questions as many as possible, of course.
We do have a few here. The first one being, could upwelling be an issue for this storm? I don't think so. The storm's going to be moving fast enough that it's going to be able to take advantage of those sea surface temperatures pretty much in full at this point. So really don't see that being a problem. Does anyone think that upwelling could be an issue for this? Is there something I'm not seeing?
If this thing
Well,
stalls
to be
over,
fair, the convection has been weakening over the past around 6 hours, and because when we're looking at the storm structurally, we find there are little chances of other factors playing in, so upwelling could certainly be a factor. Even though the sea surface temperature is relatively high in this area, note that HWRF recent runs are not ocean coupled, so which means that it does not take consideration of how upwelling could take into effect as storms slow down. So the OHC in this area is under 25, which is relatively dangerous for a storm of this size. So I think that one of the reasons why the connection weakened over the past hours would be upwelling.
And I got a 9-hour radar loop on my screen,
really,
showing the movement of the storm over the past 3 hours and how it slowed down a little bit on radar.
I'll get that to you. We're showing your radar now.
This is the past 9 hours of the storm's life, and you can see when it first starts, it's moving at a decent rate of speed to the southwest there. Then it starts to wobble a little bit more, and then starts to go more west than south in the later frames. And of course, as it makes the closest approach to Mauritius right about now, and the La Reunion being on the bottom left of your screen there, that other island there, which also has its own radar that I'll try to take a look at later on here. But just wanted to see what you guys' thoughts were on this radar loop over the past 9 hours of the storm.
What I see is this storm slowing down while it is heading west? Because when I see this thing, the loop, it's just this storm sort of slows down and then heads a little bit more west in the process.
That's what I was noticing as well. As you see in first few hours of the loop, it's going due southwest there, and then it starts to wobble a little bit more, and then now it's taking more of a due western approach to its movement in the later frames, and of course slowing down while it's at it.
Looks like in those last few frames as well, the eye becomes a bit more ragged as well. which is interesting to see. That's not really reflected on infrared, I don't think, at least yet, but we're certainly seeing on the radar there. You can see there in those last few frames, I feel like that eye is a bit more ragged.
If we
So
take a
There are
look
probably
on
some structural issues.
infrared,
Yeah.
if we take a look on infrared, this is a 12-hour loop as well. You can see the central dense overcast CDO in the beginning of some of the frames. It is a bit uniform and a little bit larger, but in the process, it was strengthened. It shrinks a little bit, and in the latest frame, it's a little bit ragged. And some of the cloud tops in the closer to the eye were a little bit warmer compared to the previous frames of the satellite. So I don't know. There may be something smoking about this storm.
yeah, there certainly could be. We'll see what does end up happening with it, but the fact that the convection has been waning over the last little while certainly a sign that something's going on with it. But it looks like the conditions over the next few days are going to be looking quite good for it. So, I mean, despite this, I still wouldn't be letting my guard down if I were in Madagascar, especially because this thing's looking rather serious. Speaking of Madagascar, there are green cyclone alerts currently in place for Madagascar, and I think that this can give you a decent idea of where those are. I have on my screen up here the cyclone alerts for Madagascar. We've already gone over those class 4 warnings in Mauritius, that red warning that is in Reunion, and just to go over those real quick, the Mauritius class 4 warning, that means that wind gusts over 120 kilometers per hour are currently occurring in Mauritius. And then that red alert, that red cyclone alert, that means that a cyclonic event is expected to be occurring with rain or strong to very strong wind, sorry, on all or part of the territory. So basically, what they're saying is you want to move away from openings. You want to use your phone only when necessary to make sure that you're preserving battery, things like that, in case your power goes out. And you want to prepare for things like power outages, stuff like that. So that's what that red alert means for La Reunion. And then this green alert here for Madagascar, that means that within the next 2 to 5 days, the expectation is that you will be getting at least tropical storm force winds if within any of these areas. So that's what we're looking at right now. That's a rather serious situation. You can see there a lot of the center of the country and the eastern coast there, well within those green alerts. So it's a serious situation to say the very least. Everyone within Madagascar, especially again on the east central side of things, at least for now, needs to be keeping a very close eye on this and begin making preparations. Some suggestions from the Madagascar government. The main ones are that they want to make sure that you have plenty of candles to light over there in case your power goes out, that you have electronic batteries, and you want to be making other preparations, stocking up on whatever food and water you can before this does arrive. They also say that you want to make sure that you keep documents in a safe place in case your home does get flooded from this storm. So make sure that everything is in a safe place. Make sure that you're battening up your doors and windows, that you're barricading those. Those are other suggestions from the Madagascar government. But that's currently what we're looking at the moment.
There are some.
Yeah, speaking of Madagascar, Thomas, the latest bulletin, as you had that up there on the screen, they don't forecast any significant change in terms of their forecast. A potential cyclonic threat is assessed for the east coast of the country with an estimated landing between Vatomandri and Menagerie on Saturday, February 5th as an intense tropical cyclone. They're forecasting winds to be 175 kilometers an hour. Batsirai is then expected across the country from east to west to come out into the sea near the Mozambique Channel at Manabe on the morning of February 6th. So that is the latest bulletin from Madagascar. That bulletin as of about 3 hours ago.
Right. So those warnings will just go up in its tier whenever the storm gets closer to the coastline. So yeah, should be well prepared and well aware of the system happening right now if you're living in those areas. We've got some questions. Some viewers have been asking that will a IRO replacement cycle be happening? Any thoughts?
Eyewall replacement cycles are extremely difficult to predict. They're not something that we can say for sure will or won't happen. You can actually see on Isaac's radar there rather clearly some outer banding that I think for a while we thought was going to attempt to become a secondary eye wall. Didn't really materialize, but if I were a betting man, I would say, given how much time this has before it does hit Madagascar, it's going to undergo one or two eyewall replacement cycles before it does end up striking. So, while we can't say for certain if or when it's going to happen, the odds are that it will happen at some point. We just can't tell you exactly when or how exactly it'll impact the storm. So, eyewall replacement cycles are difficult to predict. But again, we think that some are probably going to take place at some point, given that the storm is in that kind of phase where it's very strong, so that outer banding is going to be able to materialize.
Yeah. More questions. Will Batsirai head south and then hit Reunion? As per the cone, that is probably not the case, and I think that personally, I think. Why am I hearing echoes? Oh.
So we're talking about La Reunion's potential impacts from this. The current appearance is that we're going to be seeing this heading towards La Reunion, giving tropical storm force winds if those aren't already occurring, but a direct hit is unlikely at this point. Again, they're outside of that Mateo France cone, so it's pretty unlikely that we're going to be seeing a direct hit from this storm. As we track it out on models and things like that, you can see, though, again, we're looking at tropical storm force winds, but we're not really looking at any sort of direct impacts beyond that and some heavy rainfall and maybe some higher surf.
Speaking of those impacts, Thomas, we did have one of our viewers submit some on the ground footage to us through our Facebook page. Again, you guys can send your videos and photos either to our Facebook page, keyword Force13, or you can send them to our email at contact@force13.com. But yeah, Thomas, we do have some visual impacts on the island of Mauritius. We do have a video that was submitted to our Facebook group showing just how intense the winds are on the island of Mauritius. I can play that whenever it's racked up and ready to go.
Why am I receiving echoes? Anyway,
Yeah, I see. We're ready. So yeah, this is on the ground on the island of Mauritius. Take a look. That just kind of gives you guys an idea of just how strong the winds are on the island of Mauritius. Obviously, tropical storm force conditions being felt on the island at this time. Walter?
sorry.
I'll just hand it back to you.
Oh, okay. Sorry for some technical difficulties. I have no idea why we're getting echoes, but that shouldn't affect much.
Yeah, basically all you want to do is just make sure that some of the Discord streams sometimes have our audio feedback through, so just make sure that when you're on like Tim's stream or my stream that you mute it, and that should help.
We got more questions in the meantime. Some viewers are asking if the storm has peaked.
Some viewers are asking if the storm has peaked.
Yeah.
It very well might have. We don't know. It's going to be in good conditions over the next couple of days. But at this time, it's definitely undergone its first peak. It's definitely on a weakening trend right now. But as it moves towards Madagascar, we're expecting it to begin strengthening again. So it's going to have a secondary peak. We're not sure if it's going to get as strong as the first one, but it will in fact peak again. So we'll just have to see what exactly ends up happening there, that's for sure.
For those who are joining us just now, Cyclone Batsirai is now a Category 4 cyclone with winds of 140 miles per hour and pressure of 935 millibars. The storm is heading south and is now affecting the island of Mauritius and Reunion, and possibly will be affecting Madagascar to the end of the week. You can continue to send questions to us. Send your message with force 13 or in text. It will light up for us, and we will, if we can, we will answer your questions as soon as possible.
For sure. Speaking of some questions, we have some questions about other systems. So if we want to briefly talk about those just real quick, get those in there, we certainly can. Someone asking about what the GFS says about 9P. So 9P is the system that's currently looking like it's going to be headed towards New Caledonia. You can see the GFS right here. This is, for those of you that are unfamiliar, that's the global forecast system. It's run in North America, and this is a tropical cyclone model to some degree. It forecasts everything, but we use it a lot to forecast tropical cyclones. This is how it has 9P right now, tropical depression. It's not all that strong, and what it shows is, in about a day's time, the storm is moving in the general direction of New Caledonia and is strengthening very slowly. We can see some tropical storm force winds coming in there by the time it does get into New Caledonia and continues to strengthen. But Vanuatu, New Caledonia, that general region between both of those areas, expected to get hit here around midnight UTC on Saturday. So it's going to be around, I would think, noon Saturday around their time. So that's the current expectation. A tropical storm. It's not going to be overly strong. It's not going to be a Batsirai level kind of event in terms of strength, intensity, rainfall, any of that. But it certainly is going to be a system that needs to be watched for Vanuatu and New Caledonia as it does end up moving through before it does move off and out to sea. Not really expected to impact any more land. But the GFS currently showing that 9P is going to strengthen a bit, become a more potent tropical storm as it moves through the Vanuatu region and then moves out. We can't really get into specifics. You can't read this too specifically, the exact place that it has this going. We can almost certainly say that's subject to change, so you can't read this exactly, but you can get the general idea that we're expecting some sort of tropical storm to move through the New Caledonia Vanuatu region. That's what we have right now.
All right. So another cyclone that will probably be little to no threat to land, I guess.
Yeah, it's not going to be a huge threat. It should be noted it's definitely going to be of some threat to land, and it still needs to be watched in Vanuatu and New Caledonia. But it's not going to be a upper echelon, a bunch of things could get completely destroyed, catastrophic damage level threat. This isn't one of those things where you need to batten down the hatches and start panicking or anything. This is just one of those things where you just need to be keeping a watchful eye. You might need to stay inside for a day, make sure that you have procedures in place in case some damage does get inflicted on your home or something like that. But you're not going to be getting complete destruction or anything of that nature with this storm.
All right, we did have a couple questions coming in about the eye temperature of Batsirai. Just took a measurement as of the 1600 UTC frame. Eye temperature on Batsirai currently 11 degrees Celsius as of the latest look.
So it has cooled down a little bit. If I remember when I was checking the eye temperature in the afternoon my time, which is about around 6 hours or so ago, it was reaching around 15 degrees Celsius inside the center of the eye. So the eye temperature has cooled down a little bit over the past few hours, but it is still in the positives. So reflecting on a very serious and very intense tropical cyclone right now happening in front of our eyes. Some more questions. We usually get these, but we'll have to answer those. Will this become a Cat 5? Thoughts? Personally,
Definitely a possibility. I mean, it still has quite some good condition in front of it over the next days before it makes landfall. Makes its landfall. So, plus the sea surface temperature and OHC isn't the worst in front of it, and as it moves further forward, the poleward outflow is going to further open up, creating a very good outflow condition for the storm. So, but it really depends on how the structure of the storm develops over the next day or so. If it goes into EWRC and gets stuck in it, then it might as well as just no longer have another peak, and this is its strongest peak. So it really depends on what we see over the next day.
That's absolutely the case. There's a lot of uncertainty with this storm's maximum intensity. Something else I'd like to make clear for anyone that is in Madagascar, regardless of what we expect the intensity to be, whether it be a category 3, 4, or 5, all of which are possibilities when this does make landfall, the preparations remain the same. The message does not change. The potential damage doesn't change too much. The size of the storm, the catastrophic rainfall, the storm surge, all of those things are going to still be very serious regardless of wind. Yes, of course, a Category 5 is going to do worse wind damage than a Category 3, but both are capable of doing significant destruction to any areas that do get a direct hit from those wind speeds. 115 mile per hour winds are no joke. 160 mile per hour winds certainly are no joke. Regardless, the message doesn't really change. If you're in a green alert for a tropical cyclone impact in Madagascar right now, you need to be making those preparations that are suggested. Again, that's things like candles, electric batteries, flashlights, stuff like that, making sure those documents are in safe places, making sure you're stocking up on food and water, and making sure that you're barricading those doors and windows to ensure that you can remain as safe as possible when this tropical cyclone does move through.
to recap of the warnings now in effect. Now, for Mauritius, Class 4 warnings, the highest tier of their own warning system, is in effect, meaning that gusts of well over 120 kilometers per hour have been recorded and are expected to continue. For La Reunion, the red cyclonic warning, which is also, I think it's the second highest tier right now, is also in effect for Reunion, meaning that a cyclone is impacting Reunion right now with heavy rainfall and wind threats are also possible around the island. In Madagascar, the green cyclone alert is also in effect for the entire eastern seaboard and central Madagascar, meaning that a cyclone is expected to impact the regions possibly in 2 to 5 days' time. That's all the warnings issued right now, and the warnings for Madagascar will only go up in its tier rather than go down as the storm gets closer towards the island.
Absolutely. On my screen now, I do have a really nice and confined way of getting all this information. This is a Force 13 cone. This was made courtesy of Juliania, who is on our team, and she has made this fantastic cone. This gives you a good idea. This shows you Mateo France's current intensity forecast overlaid with all of those warnings currently in place and a nice 1 minute wind kind of thing there in miles per hour, and you can also see the converted units as well. So this is a nice place where you can get all that information at once. We're going to have that out on our Twitter page here at about top of the hour, if not sooner. You can see the CDPS stage, the current category, where it's expected to go, all of that stuff. So firstly, these kinds of fantastic products, you can continue to see them on our social medias. But secondly, you can see rather clearly here all of those warnings in place. So again, those hurricane warning equivalents in place for both Mauritius and La Reunion. And then again, those green cyclone alerts all up the coast there, equivalent to tropical storm watches in our eyes. So that's what you can see there rather clearly. And then you can see again that weakening and re-strengthening phase. Mateo France expecting this to weaken down to a Category 3 for some time before re-strengthening and landfalling as a 130 mile per hour powerful Category 4 system. And again, that's a stage 7 on the CDPS scale.
And we'll also like to promote our collaborated organization, which is Mateo at Cyclone Maurice. We've been in partnership with them since around 3 to 4 years ago, and they are our local organization in Mauritius, and do check their videos as well, because of yeah, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Mateo at Cyclone Maurice, they're a fantastic organization. They keep you up to date with stuff specifically for Mauritius in terms of those tropical cyclones, just ensuring that all of that information is out and for you to see. They repost stuff from us. They post stuff from the Maurice government, and they also repost stuff from Mateo France. They give you all the information you need in one place. Please go check them out. They're a fantastic place to find out more about what's going on in Mauritius in terms of tropical cyclone activity.
Yes. If we take a look back to the satellite imageries, this is the infrared showing around a very nice and clear eye in the center of the system, and some of the cloud tops surrounding its eye. But the central dense overcast, the CDO, which is the area which is surrounding the eye of itself, has a little bit lacking over the past few frames or so. You can see that the CDO is a little bit round in the first few frames, but a little bit ragged right now towards the end of this frame or so. The cloud tops have warmed up a little bit over the past few hours or so. Maybe it was hinting something, but we're not so sure about it.
I have noticed on the Maurice's radar in the last, the more recent frames, I'm sorry, that obviously the eye has been wobbling a little bit more, and looks like there has been one or two times where the northern quadrant may have tried to open up for a second there and then gets quickly covered back by what looks like maybe perhaps an outer eye wall there. It's kind of hard to tell with the resolution of the radar here, but I have the loop on my screen if you want to take a look and see for yourself. But I'm seeing perhaps two distinct eye walls there on radar. You got the inner one right there, and you got the outer one trying to take over from that one on that. And then satellite is giving some indication that perhaps an eye wall placement cycle could be on the cards here, but it's really anyone's game here, I think. I just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on this latest radar imagery here coming from Mauritius.
I actually had no
Yeah.
idea. I mean, it seems a little bit like something that our replacement cycle will do, but we're actually not so sure yet about if that's really an hour replacement cycle or some kind of dry intrusion or some bandings or something. Thomas, you want to say something?
Yeah, it's difficult to tell what exactly is going on because you can see kind of those bands reaching around the outside. You can see the inner eye wall very clearly. And for those of you that aren't 100% sure what we're talking about that inner ring. You can see this inner ring right around the center. That's called that inner eye wall. And then there are these bands, and you can see them way outside of the storm, but you can see them wrapping inside. Those are what could create another eye wall, and we think that there's the possibility that these bands have kind of closed off, and they're going to attempt to choke off that first inner eye wall. And we're seeing some signs of that, but it's difficult to tell just because of the resolution of the radar and how far away the storm is what exactly is going on there. Microwave isn't giving us much clearer of a picture either. So basically what we're saying here is that it's pretty uncertain what the structure of the storm is currently looking like, and it's even more uncertain as to what the structure of the storm is going to continue to look like as time does continue to go on here. So that's current thoughts. There's some uncertainty, but I think that it's clear that some sort of eye wall replacement cycle, if it's not already occurring, will begin to occur here in not too long.
And if it's not intensifying any further, it's at least maintaining its intensity at this point, because that's generally what tends to happen when storms undergo an eye wall replacement cycle. They either maintain their intensity or maybe weaken 5 or 10 miles an hour before they do an uptick in intensity again here. And that remains to be seen with this storm. But certainly, though, no matter how you slice it, it's still a very dangerous and very serious storm for those of you guys in Madagascar, especially, that are going to be impacted by this. I'm talking central and southern Madagascar. As Thomas was saying earlier, many, many times, make sure you have a plan of action and you know what you're going to be doing. Don't be out and about rushing the final few hours before the storm makes landfall to do your plans. Make sure they're done now, well in advance from the onset of those tropical storm force and eventually hurricane force conditions on the island. So I just really want to hammer that into anybody on the island, just to please, if you're going to be preparing, do it as soon as you possibly can now, and don't wait the final few hours to do it when those, of course, tropical storm force conditions are being felt.
That it's better prepare for the system rather than being not prepared and taking the effect of this gorgeous storm, but yet very, very deadly indeed in terms of what it will bring for the islands and then into the Madagascar region.
I do have up on my screen here, this is projected from the European weather model. I think this has the best grip on the storm's current rainfall potential right now. I have a map here. It's kind of a rainfall heat map. It gives you a good idea of just how much rain different areas can expect. Mauritius is expected to, and this is additional rain at this point. Looks like the European model is predicting about 115 additional millimeters of rain. Again, this isn't going to be exact. You need to do a plus or minus, I'd say 50 millimeters in some cases, just to make sure that you're getting the most realistic picture you can. You can see, though, here rather clearly, La Reunion, over 700 millimeters of rain is the current expectation. That's no joke. That can cause landslides. That can cause flooding. That's why we have that red alert in effect right now for La Reunion. So no joke on the rainfall front there. Again, over 700 millimeters of rain. That is nothing to scoff at whatsoever. And then as we head towards Madagascar, you can see just all the way down the coast, well over 100 millimeters of rain in many areas. With local areas, it looks like getting well over 400, 500 millimeters of rain, at least as of now. And again, that could be more eventually when this does end up striking. I think there's a real possibility that we're looking at a 600 millimeter plus event for a lot of the more mountainous areas in particular. So flooding, landslides, things like that, going to be problems again. Unfortunately, I know that Anna, before it was named, caused some devastating damage in Madagascar. Unfortunately, it looks like we're going to be seeing more devastating flooding, rainfall, stuff like that from the storm. And that's, again, not accounting for those strong winds and the storm surge that you can expect. If you're on the southern side of this storm, when it does move into land, you're going to be getting some real storm surge with this. So in every case, you need to be preparing if you're within that cone of uncertainty from Mateo, France, or places outside of that, just outside of that. If you're along the eastern coast of Madagascar in particular, within those green alerts, you need to be watching this very closely, as you're going to be having some pretty serious stuff going on around you.
Would you like to explain why in the storms what am I saying? You want to explain that why being in the south of the cyclone will be hitting harder?
Yeah, I can. I think that some satellite imagery wouldn't be terrible to look at for this. This can kind of demonstrate what exactly the issue is. So storms, obviously, in the southern hemisphere, you can see it here. They turn like this. They turn in a clockwise direction. So what's the problem with that exactly? The problem is that on the south side, these storms, they push a lot of water up. So if you have water, let's say that the storm ends up being right about here near Madagascar, you have water getting pushed off the coast on this side, north of the storm, and then south of the storm, you have water getting pushed on shore. So you have all this water along the coast and in the ocean getting pushed on shore by the southern side of the storm. So on the southern side, you have those winds that are moving directly on shore. That's going to push that water on shore. So that's why the southern side is normally the worst when it comes to storm surge.
Thomas, do you wanna would you mind stopping at the last few frames of the satellite?
Not mind at all.
Is that a second eyewall feature?
That's definitely an interesting feature to say the least. You can see it there very clearly. Kind of this little band here that goes up and out and around. So you can kind of see this wrapping. Uh, that would seem to indicate that you have an eye wall here and you have some sort of secondary band trying to form. We'll see. I'm not 100% sure what exactly that's going to end up being, but you can see there rather clearly that there's definitely some sort of disruption to the storm structure at this time.
So if an eyewall replacement cycle gets its act together, it may weaken the storm a little bit over the period. But when the eyewall replacement cycle is complete, it usually, when the bandings holds itself firm, it will re-strengthen, and maybe it will strengthen much further than what the initial intensity might be. So, we generally see our replacement cycles as an act of weakening and then re-strengthening again, and may have a very dangerous effect to land masses if it completes its eye replacement cycle and then holds its intensity. Because when eye replacement cycle finishes, it may re-strengthen the system and go actually more intense than what was initialized.
I now have the Reunion radar site up on my screen, giving you a little bit different view from that radar site, and I still can't 100% say if that's an owl piston cycle or not. It sure looks like it's trying to, but not sure. Wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on this radar view here.
Yeah, the radar view, it shows those very distinct two bands there on the inside. You can see the very inwardmost band there, and you can see this other one that's trying to wrap around. Given the satellite there, that we have this weakness on the southern side, and you can kind of see that weakness on the southern side on the radar, I'm going to say that we have a secondary eye wall that's really trying to form if it hasn't already. I think we're about to go into an eye wall replacement cycle if we haven't already. I mean, satellite data coupled with both of the radars, to me at least, looks like a pretty good indicator of the fact that we're about to head into an IWAR replacement cycle.
You were talking about the storm surge earlier, Thomas, and how that could impact Madagascar. We are actually seeing some visual shots of how this is impacting Mauritius.
Oh, wow.
Went scouring on the Twitterverse, and we have a very beautiful shot. This was uploaded by Catherine Lozwick, reshared by Amora Sakina off of Twitter, and you can just see the wave action here on this shot just off of Mauritius. Those waves possibly 10 meters high in this shot whenever we get it on air. So yeah, this is a little bit of a harbinger of what we could be seeing for the Madagascar coastline here in the next 3 to 4 days.
Goodness gracious.
That is can't speak much. Usually the storms that gives us such a I wouldn't say it's beautiful, sort of like a picturesque scenes, but what it lay behind is that a very dangerous and deadly situation that the areas are being hit on. So that's
Absolutely, Walter. And that is what's incredible with storms of this magnitude is they can look so beautiful on the surface, but when you start digging into the layers of the actual damage potential and what they're actually bringing to these areas, then it becomes almost a nightmare in of itself. So it's kind of a flip of a coin there. One side, this looks incredible with the wave action, what we're seeing on satellite, but underneath, we know this could be very devastating for Mauritius, Reunion, and eventually for the Madagascar region once it does start making its way towards that island.
yes, indeed. We're nearing the top of the hour mark. If you've got some final questions that would like us to answer for you, please do send them. And any more thoughts from the team?
Generally, at this point, there are a few things that can be said about the storm. Firstly, the storm right now, it's powerful, it's intense, it appears to be weakening, but that's not reason to let your guard down. If you're in Mauritius, you're currently in Class 4 warnings. You're on the back end of this. The worst has passed. You're still going to be getting some rather strong winds. Again, that's why those Class 4 warnings are in effect. Those 120-kilometer-per-hour gusts are still occurring and could continue to occur for the next little while. If you're in La Reunion, red cyclone alerts are currently in effect. Tropical storm force winds are likely for you as this storm does move by. It's also likely that you're going to be seeing significantly higher surf and possibly over 600 millimeters of rain. Then, as we head towards Madagascar, things continue to deteriorate in terms of what the storm's expected to do, with a direct landfall as a Category 3 or 4 cyclone. Mateo France currently forecasting a Category 4 hit with this storm as it does move in. And again, we can't rule out a Category 5 with this. It's moving into good conditions. Regardless of that, this is a Stage 7 on the CDPS scale, meaning that wherever this does end up making landfall in the areas around it, catastrophic impacts are currently expected. Rainfall over 600 millimeters is the expectation, with wind speeds over 130 miles per hour at the point of landfall, and the storm is going to be large enough to produce some big-time storm surge as well. If you're in alerts in Mauritius, La Reunion, or Madagascar, your time to prepare is now. If you're in Mauritius, La Reunion, the storm is pretty much on top of you, so at this point it's about remaining safe during the storm. If you're in Madagascar, it's about making preparations now. Things like, again, those candles, flashlights, making sure your documents are in safe places, stocking up on food and water, and ensuring that you have your barricaded doors and windows. Those are going to be the ways that you can make sure that you're as safe as you can be as the storm moves through. Unfortunately, devastating flooding and things of that nature are expected as this moves into Madagascar, but that's the general take right now before this moves into the Mozambique Channel, where things get very uncertain.
It's definitely a unfolding situation and a very life-threatening and very dangerous situation to be unfolded in the Madagascar region once this storm heads towards the island and possibly may landfall there in the next few days or so.
Also like to say before we do move forward, after this stream ends, a video update will be coming out by our very own Christian. That's
Yes.
going to be coming out in very short order, so you can, if you want the latest information on this storm after we go off the air, that's where you can find it. That's going to be on our main channel. You can keep an eye on YouTube by subscribing and turning on notifications, or you can give us a follow on Facebook or Twitter. We're going to have it promoted over there as well.
Before we go off the air after an hour of coverage, I would like to read along the bulletin made by Mateo France on some of the impacts on inhabited lands. For Mauritius and Reunion, the deterioration of meteorological conditions continues on Mauritius and Reunion, even if the core of the cyclone should pass more than 100 kilometers away from the islands, and significant impacts are to be feared. Heavy rains are expected, especially on the high grounds of the two islands. Both islands should be concerned by gale force winds with gusts exceeding 120 kilometers per hour on the coastline. The cyclonic swell should also be sensitive, reaching around 5 meters. The expected storm surge remains low, of the order of a few tens of centimeters. These impacts should be reinforced by the probable eye-wall replacement cycle. For Madagascar, the arrival of the cyclone is expected on Sunday local time on the eastern coast, potentially at a tropical cyclone or intense tropical cyclone state, which means around Category 3 cyclone on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Heavy rain and wind impacts is possible from Friday. The first forecast of the storm surge suggests a minimum surge around 1 meter south of the landfall area. The uncertainty that remains on the forecast of trajectory and intensity of such a dangerous system near inhabited lands requires the utmost caution. The population concerned are invited to follow the evolution of the situation with attention. If you are around those islands, you should be hunkered down. And if you're on Madagascar, if the government asks you or the official agencies ask you to do something like be prepared or even maybe evacuate, please follow the instructions. This storm is no joke, and it will pose a very life-threatening situation across the landfall area or near where you live. So if the government asks you to act or maybe evacuate if necessary, please do so. And we're ending the live stream here. Any more final thoughts, Thomas?
Really, I think the final thing is just you need to be making sure that you're preparing for the storm in Madagascar. If you're in La Reunion and Mauritius, the conditions are hitting you now. Make sure you're staying safe. If you're in Madagascar, please make sure that you stayed tuned to your local official information there. Mateo France will be continuing to update this storm. We're going to continue to keep you updated on this storm. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter for our latest cones and situation reports that we're going to be posting as the storm continues. And you can subscribe and turn on notifications over here to get our latest video updates, with one video update coming out within the next half hour.
Absolutely, Thomas. And if you want to join the conversation with our team off the air, you can always join our Discord server at discord.gg/Force13.
And this will be our end towards this 1 hour live. This has been Force 13 Live, and we will be live maybe probably the same time tomorrow, or probably the rest of the week or so. So stay tuned and please follow us. And this is a very life-threatening situation unfolding right now, especially in Mauritius, Reunion, and the island of